what exactly does it do to us?
Well, it very much depends, like most drugs, how much you take. If you take a small quantity, it will make you feel relaxed. It will give you a high. It'll make you feel good in most people. But of course, we've moved from relatively low strength THC, that's tetrahydrocannabinol, containing cannabis, to really quite high strength THC containing cannabis. We've also changed the ratio of the THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, to cannabidiol, and that ratio is supposedly quite important for maintaining safety and lack of psychosis symptom. And there is undoubtedly a problem with cannabis in terms of producing psychosis.
So are there benefits perhaps to the ingestion of cannabis, either smoked or eaten or turned into medical products?
Well, the medical products, there's certainly some benefit. GW Pharma for many years now have been manufacturing cannabis for use in medicine, and we've got drugs like Sativex, which is used in various treatment options. And we've heard quite a lot from the likes of the child Dingley and about the control of his epilepsy by taking cannabis. So there are definite medical benefits and medical uses of cannabis. And you can say there's some benefit perhaps from smoking it as well. Although I would say that smoking it is going to be like smoking cigarettes. You're going to have to do yourself some lung damage eventually, and there's going to be issues about that. But maybe vaping's the way forward.
In that respect, is the biggest risk associated with cannabis, therefore, the fact that it is something that's unregulated, it's a street-sold drug, whereas if it was perhaps legalised, it could be regulated, bringing down, say, the quantities of THC in it, thereby making it less harmful, and also potentially unleashing it for all of the potential health benefits it could have?
Well, I think that's really the issue in terms of people like myself who don't smoke cannabis and don't particularly want to smoke cannabis. It's an issue. The problems we have with cannabis are the crimes that this drug being illegal actually promotes. Because it's illegal, there's a lot of illegality around the supply of cannabis, drug wars, and things like that, which are happening, which affect the general populace rather than the people who are taking it. To the people who smoke cannabis, the problems are that the health issues, like driving, for example, that may well impact on us when someone runs you over who's been smoking cannabis and driving. And of course, the few people who take cannabis who become psychotic, that's a major problem for them. People who are borderline schizophrenic can be pushed over the limit by taking high doses of cannabis.
But in that respect, would it therefore not have the same potential risk levels as alcohol? You know, someone who wakes up in the morning and does a shot of whiskey is probably not going to be as productive at work, and certainly if they down half a bottle and get behind a wheel of a car, they're going to be massively dangerous. Yet a glass of red wine in the evening doesn't harm anybody. Would you put cannabis on the same level, or does it pose potentially more of a health risk?
Cannabis is well down the risk level compared to alcohol. Alcohol is our most dangerous drug in this country. It's the one that does the most harm in terms of damage to you as a person and damage to society as well. Alcohol is way up the list compared to cannabis.
And in terms of its
die of cannabis every year. Lots die from alcohol.
In terms of its psychoactive effects, you said that people who maybe are predisposed to mental health problems, cannabis could be the thing that lights the blue touch paper and pushes them over the edge. For people who aren't necessarily predisposed to psychosis, does it still have a long-term risk of, potentially causing depression or paranoia?
Well, paranoia comes with a psychosis, but I think if you're a light user, that's not a big risk. It's really the heavy users who predispose themselves to psychosis. But anyone could become psychotic if they're predisposed to it, and cannabis tips them over the edge.
Atul, thank you so much for coming and explaining all the properties of cannabis and how it affects our bodies. That's Atul Johnston, Emeritus Professor of Clinical Pharmacology at Queen Mary University of London. Well, joining me now is the Police and Crime Commissioner for Cleveland Police, Steve Turner. Now, Steve, you're not a fan of legalising cannabis at all, are you? Why?
I'm not, Alex. No, thank you for having me on. I think from my perspective, my role is to look at it from a policing angle, and what we see from the police's side of it is the organised crime that cannabis farms drive, the human trafficking, modern day slavery, and just the very nature of the drug and the way it affects people. When people drive, when people think it's an easy option for them, and we see so much crime affected to it, and so many lives put at risk because of it.
But anybody who's, been essentially alive during lockdown will have no doubt smelt cannabis in the air somewhere. It seems to be everywhere at the moment. So, frankly, this isn't necessarily solving the problem. And I understand the argument in terms of decriminalising it, where the user isn't necessarily prosecuted for using it. But if you were to legalise it and sell it in a shop, which is taxed and the product is regulated and you have to be age verified to buy it and you know what you're getting, then most of the problems associated with that, lining the pockets of drug dealers or creating a substance that could be dangerous for people and then potentially being able to put in legislation say, well, you can't smoke and get behind a wheel, surely that actually would solve the problems you've just outlined.
No, I think because what you'd still see is what we see with tobacco right now. The unregulated tobacco industry is enormous. And what you would find is if we legalised it, so that would drive the price up. So legislation and just getting that to market would drive the price up. So there would always be people looking for a cheaper option. There would always be people looking for a stronger option. And so there would still be a market for it. And then that's before we even get into the fact that people under the whatever age restriction we put on it would be there. So all we would do is we would drive that market even further down the cycle. It would still be there. And it is such a massive money-raking ring for organised crime gangs that they're not going to let this go. And it's not just the money that comes from that, it's the violence we see from it. So here in Cleveland, we regularly see turf wars effectively with people with guns, with machetes, fighting over the ownership of a cannabis farm.
But if that was sold in shops, taxed by the government, if you're over 18 you can go in and buy it over the counter, all of that stuff's largely gone, isn't it?
No, not really, because like I said, if you look at tobacco, something like 30-40% of the tobacco smoked in this country is from either from abroad or from illegal sources. It's not bought over the counter in your local corner shop. And I think the other side of that is if you're a party at 1 o'clock in the morning, you go to the nearest supplier, you don't think, oh, well, I can get it online in 2 days' time. You want it now and you want it when you want it. And there will still be a market for cannabis and a legal market for cannabis. And as long as there's still an illegal market for it, there will still be organised crime gangs involved in it.
But where we are right now, it seems to me the police don't have a handle on this at all. I mean, it's everywhere on the streets of the UK. You really don't have to look that hard, I don't think, to try and buy it. So surely that this is putting more pressure on a police service that's already overstretched when, frankly, when it comes to the issues of, facing the public right now, if people are smoking a bit of weed at home, it's hardly going to rock the boat that much.
Yeah, but I think that's a problem we have to face as a society. So lots of these people that think smoking a bit of weed at home doesn't harm anybody, they might be the same people that don't eat meat because they're worried about the welfare of animals, but they're not worried about the welfare of the human beings that are trafficked into this country, that are then indebted into modern slavery, that actually run these cannabis farms and grow these farms. So if for anybody that thinks it's not harming anybody, you need to look below the surface. And if
Steve,
you really think...
Steve, I get that. I get the fact that it's grown in these cannabis farms, that people are trafficked into work in them, a lot of them from places like Vietnam. I understand that, and I understand that drug dealers are selling weed on the streets and then also encouraging people to buy stronger products. That makes absolute sense. So either the police need to deal with that and actually get on top of the problem, surely, or say, well, if we remove this one element from it, we might stand a better chance.
No, we do need to get all the problem, and that's something we're working very hard across the country. And that's I see on our social media pages, whenever we raid a cannabis farm or we take down, there is a section of society that doesn't think that's a problem. And yet the vast majority of people I talk to, when I do my consultations, when I do my community engagement groups, people are bothered about illicit drug taking. People are bothered about illicit drug taking, and they do want the police to deal with that. They don't want to see it legislated. The people that are shouting for it to be legislated aren't the people that are seeing it day to day. They're the people that want their hit, that want to do what they want to do, right? And they're not taking into consideration how it affects other people's lives.
According to the same logic, then, would it be about right to bring back some form of prohibition and make alcohol illegal? Because arguably you get people having fights in streets, you get domestic abuse, you get people with long-term health problems like cirrhosis of the liver, you get moonshine being made by, illegal manufacturers of alcohol. And according to the pharmacologist I just had on, the risk to the human body is about the same.
You're quite right. And then you could argue that about tobacco. And then if tobacco was invented tomorrow, we wouldn't legalise it. Right, and the dare say with alcohol, but we live in a society. Lots of different countries across the world legalise different things, and there are countries out there that think that legalising cannabis is the right way to go. We haven't got that law here. It is illegal here, and while it's illegal, it's my job as Police and Crime Commissioner to ensure that our police force is pushing that and taking every step possible to make sure that we do close down those cannabis farms.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.